Action games are a test of your reflexes, your timing, your ability to read a situation and react faster than your brain can think. And when an action game gets everything right, the combat, the pacing, the moment-to-moment feel of every single move, there is no better experience in all of gaming. On PS5, action gaming has reached an entirely new level. The DualSense making every hit, every block, every dodge feel physical in a way controllers never have before. Load times so fast, the action never stops. Visuals so sharp, every fight looks like a cinematic sequence. PS5 was built for action, and in 2026, the games are finally proving it at full force. Today, we've rounded up the very best of them. These are the PS5 action games you absolutely need to play in 2026. Buckle up because this list goes hard. Let's get into it.
Team Ninja takes everything they learned from Neo and points it at one of the most turbulent eras in Japanese history, the fall of the samurai and the dawn of a new age. Rise of the Ronin gives you a fully open world to explore, but the real draw is the combat, layered with multiple weapon styles, stances, and a counter system that rewards aggression. You're not locked into one path either. Your choices shape alliances during a real historical revolution, letting you fight alongside or against figures ripped from actual events. It's dense, occasionally overwhelming, but packed with the kind of punishing swordplay fans of the genre live for. If Ghost of Quixote left you hungry for more feudal Japan, this scratches that itch differently.
Forget everything Doom Eternal taught you about speed. The Dark Ages slows things down on purpose, trading parkour for pure hulking power. Set as a prequel to the Doom Slayer's origin, id Software throws you into a medieval meets sci-fi war against hell, arming you with a spinning shield you can block with, and grind across battlefields on. Add dragon riding sections, mech battles, and a shotgun that still feels as good as ever, and you get a shooter that reinvents its own identity without losing what made it great. The scale here is enormous, some of the biggest levels id Software has ever built. If you thought Doom couldn't surprise you again, this game exists to prove you wrong.
Kratos and Atreus face the end of the world, and Santa Monica Studio treats that ending like it actually matters. Ragnarok wraps up the Norse saga with some of the best boss fights the series has ever produced, deeper combat options across the Leviathan axe and Blades of Chaos, and a story that finally lets Atreus step out from his father's shadow. Every realm you visit feels distinct, dense, and worth exploring, packed with side content that never feels like padding. But it's the relationship at the center, a father learning to let go, a son learning who he wants to become, that elevates this above most action games. Even years after launch, this remains one of the most complete, emotionally satisfying epics on PS5.
Sam Porter Bridges is back, and this time the world he's trying to reconnect stretches from Mexico to Australia. Death Stranding 2 keeps the strange, hypnotic delivery gameplay loop that defined the original, but Kojima Productions pushed everything further. Vehicles, combat, and vertical terrain that turns every trek into a puzzle of momentum and balance. What makes this one hit harder is the emotional weight underneath it all, exploring connection, isolation, and what it actually means to rebuild something broken. It's strange, it's slow in the best way, and it rewards patience most action games don't ask for. If you want a game that makes traversal itself the main character, few come close to this one.
2 Spider-Men, 1 city, and a symbiote threat big enough to need both of them. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 lets you swap between Peter Parker and Miles Morales on the fly, each with their own powers, their own struggles, and their own version of New York to swing through. The web swinging here is still the gold standard. Faster, freer, and paired with wingsuit gliding that makes traversal feel like its own reward. But the real gut punch is the story, as Peter's bond with the Venom symbiote spirals into something darker than either hero expected. Insomniac didn't just make a bigger game, they made a more personal one. If you want spectacle and heart in equal measure, this is still one of the best superhero games ever made.
This is the game that proved a single studio could go toe-to-toe with the biggest names in the industry and win. Black Myth Wukong reimagines Journey to the West, one of China's most legendary stories, and drops you into the boots of the Destined One, a warrior modeled after the Monkey King himself. It's a Souls-like at heart, brutal boss fights and all, but the transformation mechanic is what makes it unforgettable. Shapeshift into enemies you've defeated and use their own abilities against the next threat. The mythology-soaked world, the jaw-dropping art direction, the sheer scale of its boss roster. This is a game built on obsession, and it shows in every frame. If you haven't finished it yet, 2026 is the year. Picture Nier Automata's style fused with the punishing precision of a Souls boss fight, and you're close to Stellar Blade. Shift Up's action RPG puts you in control of Eve, a member of an elite squad sent to Earth to reclaim it from monstrous invaders called the Nighttiba. What sold players immediately was the parry-based combat, tight, unforgiving, and deeply satisfying once it clicks. Every boss fight demands you learn its rhythm before you're allowed to win. Add in a gorgeous, decaying wasteland aesthetic and a genuinely surprising story about survival and identity, and you've got one of the most stylish action games PS5 owners have gotten exclusive access to. If you love combat that punishes button mashing and rewards patience, this belongs in your queue.
A lone woman, a burning tree, 6 names on a list. That's where Ghost of Yorte begins, and by the end, you'll understand why Sucker Punch waited 5 years to follow up Tsushima. This isn't a sequel. It's a whole new story, set 3 centuries later in 1603, deep in the snowy region of Ezo. You play Atsu, a mercenary who watched her family die as a child and has spent 16 years training to hunt down the men responsible. The open world here feels alive in a way few games manage, with dynamic weather, shifting seasons, and a combat system built around multiple weapon stances you swap mid-fight. If revenge stories hit different when the world around them is this gorgeous, this one's non-negotiable for your 2026 list.
Die! Wake up! Do it again! Except nothing is ever quite the same twice. Returnal drops you as Celine, an astronaut trapped in a time loop on a hostile alien planet, and every run reshuffles the layout, the enemies, and the loot you'll find along the way. Housemarque built their reputation on bullet hell shooters, and it shows. This is one of the most intense, screen-filling combat systems on PS5, demanding constant movement and split-second reads. But underneath the roguelike structure is a genuinely unsettling psychological story about grief and repetition, told through environmental storytelling that rewards close attention. It's demanding, it's relentless, and it's exactly the kind of game that separates casual players from ones who actually want a real fight. This is the game that made everyone realize what PS5's SSD could actually do. Rift Apart throws you between entire dimensions in the blink of an eye. No loading screens, just instant, seamless jumps mid-combat that completely change the battlefield around you. Insomniac introduces Rivet, a female Lombox from a shattered alternate dimension, giving the story real emotional stakes alongside the usual chaos of ridiculous weapons and colorful planets. The gunplay is some of the best the series has never had, with tools that let you warp enemies into other dimensions just to finish them off faster. It's colorful, it's funny, and it's a genuine technical showcase that still holds up as one of PS5's purest action platforming experiences. Cal Kestis is older, more scarred, and a lot more dangerous in this direct sequel to Fallen Order. Jedi Survivor expands everything. Bigger planets, deeper traversal with new mobility tools, and a combat system with 5 distinct lightsaber stances you can swap between depending on the fight in front of you. Respawn leaned hard into cinematic Jedi fantasy here, letting you feel like an actual master of the Force, rather than just a Padawan surviving encounters. The story goes to darker places too, exploring what happens when a former Jedi starts questioning the Republic he once trusted. It's a genuinely great continuation of Cal's journey, and one of the most polished Star Wars games PlayStation owners have gotten in years. No dodge rolling, no summons, just you, a blade, and a posture bar that punishes hesitation harder than any health bar ever could. Psychedel throws out the usual Souls formula and replaces it with a razor-sharp parry system, where deflecting attacks at the perfect moment is the only real path to victory. You play a shinobi resurrected after failure, hunting through feudal Japan with a prosthetic arm full of tools, firecrackers, axes, a grappling hook that turns verticality into a weapon of its own. The boss fights here are legendary for a reason, each one a rhythm test disguised as a duel. Years later, it's still considered one of the toughest, tightest action games ever made, and it hasn't lost an ounce of that reputation.
Pinocchio was never supposed to be this dark. Lies of P reimagines the fairy tale as a gothic, Belle Epoque nightmare, casting you as a puppet named P trying to survive a city ravaged by his own creator's madness. The combat borrows heavily from Bloodborne's aggressive rhythm, but the weapon crafting system is where it truly stands apart. Mix and match blades and handles to build a fighting style that's entirely yours. Boss fights here are genuinely some of the best the Souls-like genre has produced outside From Software itself, demanding precision and punishing hesitation in equal measure. It's dark, it's stylish, and it proves the genre still has room for fresh, twisted ideas. If you sleep on this one, you're missing one of the best surprises of the last few years.
From Software took the bones of Elden Ring and built something almost unrecognizable, a fast, aggressive roguelike built for co-op runs instead of slow exploration. Night Rain drops you and two other players into a shrinking map with a shifting storm closing in, forcing you to loot, level up, and take down escalating bosses before time runs out. Every run feels different. Every death teaches you something for the next attempt, and the tension of racing the clock adds a completely different flavor to From Software's usual formula. It's still brutal, still demands you learn enemy patterns, but the pace is faster and the sessions are shorter, perfect for quick, high-stakes runs with friends. If you love Elden Ring's world but wanted something snappier, this is exactly that. Ubisoft finally sent Assassin's Creed to feudal Japan, and they did it by giving you two playable protagonists instead of one. Naoe is a trained shinobi built for stealth, climbing rooftops and vanishing into shadow, while Yasuke is a towering samurai who solves problems by walking through the front door with a blade drawn. Switching between them mid-mission changes how you approach every objective, and the world itself, shifting seasons, weather that actually affects stealth and combat, makes this one of the most visually stunning entries the franchise has produced. It's a huge game with a huge amount to do, but the core fantasy of choosing between a ghost and a warrior is what makes it stick. This is Assassin's Creed remembering what made it special.